Why are you being so selfish, Rachel? Your brother needs that money to get his business off the ground. The accusation hit like a slap. Rachel Langston stood frozen in the middle of the lake house living room, still holding the property tax bill that had just been slid across the table like a check at a restaurant. Her father's voice was rising, angrier by the second. His face flushed red with disbelief. The words stung, not because they were new, but because they were expected. This wasn't the first time he made her feel like a resource, not a daughter. Rachel was 34, a successful investment analyst who had built her career without family money, without shortcuts. Her brother, Drew, was 31, charming, aimless, and according to their parents, trying his best. Over the past 5 years, Rachel had covered the annual $8,900 property taxes for the lake house, helped pay Drew's car loan, and chipped in for her father's physical therapy. She never boasted about it. She never asked for credit. She did it because she thought it was love. Now, that love was being weaponized against her. "I've paid those taxes for years," Rachel said quietly, trying to steady her voice. "I covered Drew's car payments. I paid for your hospital bills after the back surgery. I've been helping this whole time." Her mother sat on the couch, eyes glued to her hands, as if they held answers. She didn't speak. She never did, when it really mattered. "We gave you everything growing up," her father snapped, "and now you're just walking away?" Rachel's eyes drifted to the coffee table, where an envelope peeked out from under a gardening magazine. Something about the crisp paper edge caught her attention. She reached for it. "Rachel, that's private," her father barked, lunging to stop her. But she had already seen the name printed at the top. Drew Langston, Living Trust Agreement. Her stomach dropped. Flipping the document open, she scanned through the dense legal language, her hands trembling. The trust was real. It had been funded generously, over $350,000, with room for future contributions. All while she was told there wasn't enough to help her through graduate school. All while she'd been footing bills. "When were you going to tell me?" she whispered, voice hollow. Her father didn't answer. Her mother still didn't look up. And in that moment, something cracked, quietly, deeply. Rachel had always explained away the favoritism, told herself it was unintentional, circumstantial. But this wasn't just a lapse in fairness. This was a design. And it was time to redraw the lines. At what point does love become exploitation? When it's never acknowledged, only expected. How many times have you, quietly and consistently, been the one to hold a family together, only to be told you're selfish the moment you step back? Rachel's story isn't just about money. It's about the danger of confusing obligation with affection and how silence can often be mistaken for consent. When was the last time you were thanked, and not just relied upon? The snow was just beginning to fall as Rachel pulled into her driveway back in Albany. The cabin's lakefront charm faded fast in her mind, replaced by the raw burn of betrayal. Inside her apartment, the quiet felt different, emptier but also sharper, like silence that demanded answers. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She opened her laptop. Rachel had always been meticulous with her finances. What had started as a habit from her early days in day trading had grown into a form of discipline. Every payment, every transfer, every dollar tracked and filed. Tonight, for the first time, she opened a folder she never thought she'd need. Family contributions. Row by row, the spreadsheet began to form. The property taxes, $8,900 per year for 5 years. Drew's car payments, $328 monthly for 3 years. Her dad's physical therapy bills, not covered by insurance, $4,600. A full roof replacement at the lake house last July, $11,500, paid in full. Christmas flights, vacation rentals, birthday dinners she'd paid for, because it was easier that way. All of it, line after line. The numbers stared back at her. $117,845. Her hands trembled, not from shock, but from clarity. All this time, she'd been told the family couldn't afford to help her with tuition. that things were tight, that everyone had to pitch in. But the trust fund for Drew, $350,000 and counting, told a very different story. She called Joseph Klein, her longtime financial advisor, the next morning. "I need to show you something," she said. By 10 a.m., she was seated in Joseph's office, a ceramic mug of black coffee cooling untouched beside her. Joseph flipped through the spreadsheet slowly, his face darkening with each page. "Rachel," he said finally, "this is extensive. And you've never asked for repayment?" "They're family," she said quietly. "I just thought I was helping." He removed his glasses, setting them on the desk with a soft thud. "I admire your generosity, but this isn't sustainable. And more than that, it's not fair." He recommended a forensic accountant, Victor Hernandez. "If you want to pursue this legally, you'll need every dollar formally documented." Rachel didn't hesitate. "Let's do it." She didn't know yet what she wanted from this process: legal action, closure, leverage. Maybe all of it. Maybe none. But what she knew, beyond doubt, was this: her silence had been mistaken for agreement. And that ends now. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. She met with Victor, handed over 5 years of records, emails, bank transfers, receipts, even screenshots of texts from her parents thanking her vaguely for helping out. Victor was impressed. "Most people don't keep records this detailed," he said. "But you built a case without even realizing it." He calculated not just her contributions, but also the lost investment value had those funds remained in her portfolio. The final report came in just over $118,000, plus nearly $5,000 in unrealized gains. A conservative estimate, Victor noted. Rachel left the office with a thumb drive and 3 notarized copies of the report. That night, her phone buzzed. "Dad, we haven't received the tax payment yet. Deadline is approaching." "Drew, are you really doing this?" "Don't be difficult, Rachel." She didn't reply. Instead, she logged into her accounts and canceled the auto payment for Drew's car. Then she removed herself from all family bills. Then, with deliberate precision, she transferred $120,000 into a new account titled simply My Future. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't expected: peace. Rachel Langston didn't answer her phone for 3 days. The missed calls stacked up like unpaid bills: 6 from her father, 9 from Drew, a dozen from her mother. The texts came next. "Dad, where's the tax payment? It's overdue." Drew, "Seriously?" "My car payment bounced. Are you trying to screw up my credit?" Mom, "Rachel, please talk to your father." "He's very upset. The house means a lot to him." Not one message said thank you. Not one acknowledged what she had contributed. On the 4th morning, the building concierge rang her intercom. "Ms. Langston? There's a man in the lobby demanding to speak with you. Says he's your father." Rachel's heart thudded. "He won't leave unless you come down," the guard added. She stepped back from the speaker. "Tell him I'm not available, and if he refuses to leave, call the police." A pause. "Understood, ma'am." 20 minutes later, her cousin Thomas texted. "Thomas, your dad just got escorted out of your building. Are you okay?" Rachel, "I'm fine. Family disagreement over money." Thomas, "Honestly, about time you stood up to them. Everyone's seen how unfair it's been." Rachel stared at the screen, stunned. She had spent her entire life believing the imbalance was invisible, that no one else noticed how her accomplishments were used as an excuse to ignore her needs, while Drew's every shortcoming became a family crisis. But Thomas had seen it. Others had too. That same evening, the doorbell rang. She checked the peephole. Drew. He looked furious, arms folded across his chest, tapping one foot like she'd forgotten an appointment. Rachel opened the door, but kept the security chain in place. "What do you want, Drew?" "What do I want?" His voice rose. "I want to know why you're acting like a lunatic. My car payment bounced. Dad says you're refusing to pay the taxes. What's going on with you? Rachel didn't flinch. The problem is, I've spent 5 years funding this family while Dad was quietly building a six-figure trust for you. Drew blinked. That's different. Is it? That money's for my future. And I don't need one? You're already successful. You've got that job, that apartment. I worked for all of it, she snapped. While I was paying your bills, Drew. While I was fixing the roof on the lake house. While I was skipping vacations to help Mom with her surgery deductibles. He shifted, but not out of guilt. Out of discomfort. You've never complained before. Because I didn't know I was being manipulated. There was a long, jagged silence. Drew finally tried another tone, softer, almost persuasive. Look, I get that you're mad, but this affects all of us. The house has been part of our lives for decades. We could lose it. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You still have a trust fund. You want me to use that? You're the one with a financial cushion, Drew. He clenched his jaw. That's not fair. Rachel's voice dropped, calm but cutting. Number it's not, and I'm done pretending it is. She shut the door. Over the next few days, the silence grew thick again. Rachel spent her time reevaluating her portfolio, speaking with her financial advisor, and working uninterrupted. Without family expenses draining her monthly income, her projections improved dramatically. She could max out her Roth IRA, reinvest in emerging markets, and even start saving for a small weekend cabin of her own. Then came the email from Uncle Pete. Subject: What's going on with Greg? Rachel, your father reached out to me asking for a $10,000 loan to cover back taxes on the lake house. Said you refused to help the family? This doesn't sound like you. Rachel exhaled sharply. Her father was now going around the family, not to own up to the truth, but to gather sympathy, to paint her as ungrateful, disloyal. She typed a brief reply. No emotion, just facts. Attached. A PDF summary of her contributions to the family. 5 years, categorized, dated, verified. Uncle Pete replied within the hour. Holy hell, Rachel, I had no idea. Greg's been telling everyone he's helping you and Drew equally. This changes things. The next morning, Thomas called. There's going to be a family meeting this weekend, he said grimly. At your parents' house. Your dad's calling it to talk about your abandonment of family obligations. He's planning to guilt-trip you into covering the late fees and taxes. Rachel went quiet. I think you should be there, Thomas continued. To set the record straight, you won't be alone. I've got your back. Rachel's pulse steadied. She had feared this moment her whole life, being cast as the villain in the family narrative. But now she had facts, figures, and something stronger. The truth. I'll be there, she said. And this time, she wouldn't be silent. Saturday arrived with the weight of a courtroom summons. Rachel Langston, dressed with intention, a sharp black pantsuit, her favorite silver earrings, and the watch she wore whenever she needed to be unshakable. She wasn't going into battle for revenge. She was going for truth, clarity, and maybe, finally, peace. When she stepped into her parents' living room, the conversation froze mid-sentence. Her father stood near the fireplace, a man in mid-rant. Uncles, aunts, cousins, and even her godmother gathered in clusters of polite discomfort. Drew was seated beside their mother, arms crossed, face unreadable. Rachel, her father said, straightening his posture. Glad you could join us. We've been discussing the situation with the lake house, the property taxes. I'm sure you have, she replied evenly, setting her briefcase on the coffee table. But I'd like to make sure everyone here has the full story. Her father's smile tightened. This isn't the time for dramatics. It's exactly the time, she said, flipping open the briefcase. She passed around folders, simple manila packets. Inside, a notarized financial summary prepared by Victor Hernandez, a spreadsheet of her contributions over the last 5 years, and a signed verification from Joseph Klein, her financial advisor. As pages flipped and eyes scanned the documents, silence turned to murmurs. Her Aunt Denise frowned. $118,000? Is this real? Rachel nodded. That's what I've contributed to this family over the last 5 years. Property taxes, car payments, medical bills, home repairs. Every dollar tracked and accounted for. You've been paying the taxes on the lake house? Uncle Pete asked, stunned. Every year. Since 2018. Why didn't anyone tell us this? Aunt Catherine demanded, turning to her brother, Rachel's father. He didn't answer. Rachel took a breath. What no one told you is that, during these same years, my father established a $350,000 trust fund. For Drew. Not split between us, just Drew. Gasps. Raised eyebrows. One cousin quietly swore under her breath. Rachel didn't need to embellish. The numbers spoke for themselves. I was told repeatedly that the family didn't have enough to help me through grad school, that things were tight. And yet, while I was taking on all these financial burdens, my parents were building a nest egg. For my brother. Her father finally found his voice. Those were private family decisions. You had no right to… To what? Ask why I was being treated like the safety net, while Drew was treated like the heir? This isn't about privacy, it's about equity. Aunt Catherine folded her arms. Greg, is this true? He opened his mouth, but it was Drew who broke the silence. It's true, he muttered. She saw the documents. Rachel turned to him. You knew I was paying for your car? No, he said quickly. Not at first. Dad just said you had extra money. And the trust? I didn't know the amount. Not really. Just that it was… there. Uncle Pete spoke up. Rachel, you should have an ownership stake in that lake house if you've been footing the bills. That's basic fairness. I'm not here to claim the property, Rachel said softly. I just want the truth acknowledged, and I want the financial expectations on me to end, for good. The room fell quiet again. Then, Aunt Denise turned to her brother. Greg, you owe her an apology. I did what I thought was best, he snapped. No, Thomas interjected. You did what was easy. You leaned on the daughter who never complained and gave a pass to the son who always did. That landed hard. Her father's face, usually so composed, flushed with a mix of fury and something more surprising. Fear. The kind that creeps in when the truth starts unraveling years of carefully curated narrative. He opened his mouth, but said nothing. Her mother rose quietly, not looking at anyone, and followed him out of the room. Rachel stood still for a moment, listening to the buzz of confused voices, questions, and affirmations. You were right to bring this, Aunt Catherine said, nodding toward the documents. This needed to be seen. Rachel nodded, unable to trust her voice. The adrenaline that had carried her here was fading. What remained was something heavier, but cleaner, like a wound that had finally been lanced. She turned to leave. Wait, Drew said behind her. She looked back. I didn't know it was that much, he said, his voice lower now. I didn't know how far it went. Now you do. 3 days passed after the family meeting without a word from her father. Rachel didn't expect a thank you, but even she was stunned when his first message, cold and transactional, arrived mid-morning on a Wednesday. Property taxes are due. 4 words. No greeting, no apology. Just another demand, as if nothing had changed. She stared at her phone, blinking at the gall of it. After all that had been revealed, after the financial documentation, the emotional exposure, the public acknowledgement of betrayal, he still saw her as nothing more than the one who pays. Later that evening, the phone rang again. This time, it was her mother. Your father isn't handling this well, she said, in a voice that was more weary than apologetic. The lake house means everything to him. We've built so many memories there. Rachel's jaw tightened. More than treating your children equally? Her mother didn't answer at first. You have to understand. Your father thought Drew needed more structure, more stability. You were always so independent. That's what you always said, Rachel replied evenly. That I didn't need help. But I did. I just stopped asking when I realized I was always told no. There was silence on the other end. I've contributed nearly $120,000 over the past 5 years, Rachel continued. And while I did that, you and Dad told me the family was struggling, when in reality, you were building a $350,000 trust fund for Drew. I know, her mother whispered. I've known it wasn't right. But your father, he makes the financial decisions. Then he can handle the consequences. The next morning, Rachel sent a single text. It contained one image, a photo of the notarized financial summary, with the final amount circled in red ink. No explanation, no reply to follow. She wanted her father to see, in undeniable black and white, what his favoritism had cost. An hour later, the call came. But it wasn't from her father. It was Drew. Rachel, he began quietly. Dad showed me the paperwork. Is that number real? It's verified by a forensic accountant, she said. Every line of it. There was a long pause. He always told me you helped here and there, that you just had extra money. I didn't realize you were paying for everything. You didn't ask. I guess I didn't want to know, he admitted. I benefited from it. I didn't question it. Rachel didn't say anything. She wanted him to sit in the discomfort for a moment, but what he said next caught her off guard. I'm going to fix this, Drew said. I know it doesn't undo what's happened, but it's not right. I'm going to use part of the trust to pay the taxes, and I've already spoken to Dad's attorney about transferring a portion of the property ownership to you. Rachel blinked. Wait, what? I insisted, he said. It's not enough to just say I'm sorry. There needs to be something real behind it. Later that day, the formal documents arrived from her father's lawyer. The property taxes had been paid in full, using funds from Drew's trust. A 25% legal ownership stake in the lake house was now transferred to Rachel. Attached was a brief note from the lawyer. At Mr. Drew Langston's request, the trust was also used to cover legal fees associated with the title change. Rachel sat at her dining table, rereading the document. It wasn't about the house. She didn't want it out of sentiment. But that 25% was validation. It meant something had changed. Then her phone buzzed again. Dad. This wasn't necessary. Family helps family. Rachel didn't respond, because once again he had missed the point. Family may help each other, but not at the cost of exploitation, not in silence, and not without accountability. Minutes later, another message arrived. Mom, your father is struggling with all of this, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. I should have spoken up years ago. Rachel put down the phone, hands trembling, not from fear, but from release. She had carried the weight of obligation for so long, she didn't even know what lightness felt like. Then Drew called again. I've asked Dad to split the trust fund evenly between us, he said. He didn't like it, but Uncle Pete and Aunt Catherine backed me up. He's meeting with his financial advisor tomorrow. Rachel's breath caught. It wasn't about the money, not anymore. It was about finally being seen, about fairness, about a voice that could no longer be ignored. Thank you, she said quietly. No, Drew replied. Thank you for making us face the truth. Rachel Langston stood at the edge of the lake house dock 2 weeks later, the autumn wind brushing through her coat. The house behind her was quiet, emptier now, not in furniture or structure, but in expectation. For the first time in years, no one was asking her to save it. The 25% stake transfer was finalized. The taxes were paid, not by her, but from the same trust that once excluded her. And while her father never apologized, the legal acknowledgement was loud enough. She no longer carried their burden. She had handed it back, firmly, permanently. Rachel had since made new changes of her own. With Joseph Klein's help, she restructured her portfolio to reflect her actual future, not one siphoned off by family demands. She moved her investments from conservative legacy holdings into tech-forward, ESG-aligned funds. Her retirement planning advanced by nearly 7 years. She opened a new Roth IRA and began exploring real estate options, not for others, but for herself. She even took a weekend trip upstate alone. No guilt, no check to sign. Her mother called sometimes. Rachel answered occasionally, their conversations careful but civil. Her mother always asked how she was, rarely about money. That, in itself, was progress. Her father, on the other hand, remained a fortress. The last message from him had been brief. "Just so you know, I still think you went too far." She hadn't responded. She wouldn't. What mattered more was the shift in everyone else. Uncle Pete had reached out twice, once to apologize, once to invite her for Thanksgiving. Aunt Catherine sent her a handwritten card. "You were right to speak." That took more courage than most of us have ever shown. Even her cousin Thomas, once distant, now called regularly. "You changed the family," he told her one night. "It's like we all finally saw the truth." As for Drew, they weren't suddenly best friends, but something real had emerged between them. Understanding, shared silence sometimes, without bitterness. He had kept his word. The trust fund was officially divided. His relationship with their father had cooled since, but he didn't seem to regret it. "I wish I'd noticed sooner," he told her once. Rachel didn't answer. What was there to say? Some lessons come late, but at least they come. That morning, before leaving the lake house for good, she wrote a final note and left it in the drawer of the foyer table. "I kept things running for a long time. I gave without asking. And when I finally asked, I was told I didn't need anything, that I was strong enough on my own. You were right, I was. But strong doesn't mean silent. I'm no longer available for blame or convenience. I'm done carrying more than my share. No signature, no need." She turned the key in the door and left it on the kitchen counter. Driving away, she felt something strange at first. Emptiness, maybe. But it passed. Because what remained was hers. Peace, clarity, and a future she finally claimed for herself. Rachel's journey reminds us that love without boundaries can slowly become obligation, especially within families. Many older adults, particularly women, have spent decades giving, financially, emotionally, and physically, without expecting recognition. But when that giving is taken for granted, it no longer nurtures, it depletes. The hard truth is this: if you are always the one holding the family together, eventually they may forget how to stand without you. Rachel's story shows that setting boundaries isn't an act of selfishness, it's an act of self-preservation. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say no, even when the people you love don't understand it. This isn't just a story about money. It's about respect, equity, and the courage to stop playing a role that was never fair to begin with. Especially later in life, it's important to ask yourself, are you being valued or are you being used? Standing up for yourself may cause discomfort in others, but it creates freedom in you, and at any age, you deserve peace.